Hello, everyone. Welcome. We will start in just a minute. All right, welcome. We will give some folks a minute to start trickling in. All right. Maybe also throw where you're dialing in from in the chat. Awesome. So welcome, everyone. We are so excited to be hosting this panel. Bay Area represent, downtown San Francisco. But before we head into the introduction, I wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement. So as we gather virtually from many places today, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples who are traditional stewards of the land that we each occupy. So this recognition honors their enduring connection to these territories and reminds us of our shared responsibility to build a just future. So I'm Grace, and I lead the Global Education Partnerships at Atlassian Foundation, and I'm thrilled to facilitate today's conversation on giving with purpose, elevating your impact, and building your legacy. So as a former educator, nonprofit practitioner, and before joining Philanthropy, I worked on both sides of this equation. So seeing the very much critical need in our communities and witnessing the transformative power of strategic, thoughtful engagement and partnerships. So a little background about Atlassian really quickly. We're proud to be founding members of the Pledge 1% movement, a global initiative inspiring companies to leverage their assets for social impact. And through Atlassian, the foundation commits 1% of our equity, profit, employee time, and products to support communities globally and locally. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that we're gathering at a very pivotal moment when the challenges facing our communities are intensifying. So this creates both an urgency and also an opportunity for each of us to leverage whatever resources we have. And with that, I'm so honored to introduce our exceptional panelists for today. First off, we have Enrique Romero, Associate at Social Policy Research and a board member at Making Waves Academy. We have Leila D'Souza Branston, former Chief Development and Marketing Officer at College Track and current board member at Making Waves Education Foundation. And Kristen Turek, Senior Advisor at the Family Office of Philanthropy at Marin County Foundation. So welcome all of you, and thanks for being here today with me. Together, we'll explore concrete ways to deepen your engagement, discuss giving approaches, and share frameworks for finding organizational partners that truly align with your values. We'll start off with a few questions for our panelists that were submitted in advance, and then we'll open it up to our audience. So audience, please add your questions to the Q&A. We'll try to answer them during the Q&A later in the session, and then if not, we'll share back some responses. All right, so let's get started. So most of the folks in our audience have probably already identified a cause or an organization that really matters to them, and they're likely already donating in some way. And they might think they want to get more involved, but they don't know how. I'd love to hear from each of you. What can they do next to take action and deepen their support? Enrique, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick us off, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all, and thanks everyone for joining. Some of the things that come to mind for me that I'd be open to offering folks is considering joining a committee or a board with the organization that you've identified and that you kind of resonate with. In my own personal experience, a lot of my work actually began by joining the program advisory committee at the Making Waves Education Foundation, specifically bringing in an alumni voice. As a former wave maker, I was able to bring in my experiences as a student to that space as um, alongside other committee members were able to offer feedback into places that Making Waves was considering making adjustments. And that kind of gave me some insight because I had not formally been on a committee before or on a board before. And it gave me some good insight into kind of what the behind the scenes is all about. And it actually also supported me in then being able to join the Making Waves Academy school board through my involvement was invited into that space. And so thinking about ways to get into a committee or a board might be a helpful launching point for that experience that can then propel you moving forward into joining other committees for other organizations. A second piece of advice that I might offer is thinking about how to leverage storytelling, and you can kind of take this multiple ways. It can certainly be lifting up the stories that the organization you've identified is sharing on social media. Maybe it's articles or highlights, and you're reposting them or resharing them or engaging with those particular pieces. And you can also kind of take it a step further. If the organization that you've identified, is in a focus area that you're really passionate about, you can feel free to share your own story and how it relates to that organization's kind of giving space. So you're able to, again, make those people connections through lived experiences, whether that's your own or elevating someone else's, as a way to take additional action and deepen that engagement.
How about you, Leela? What do you think about deepening the impact?
Yeah, thank you. I want to build on what Enrique said and welcome everybody first. And it's an honor to be here and participate in things like this because my life changed dramatically when I started going towards organizations and committees and boards that really aligned with my passion and the things in the world that I believed needed to be have more impact and were very meaningful. So the thing that I would love to build on that Enrique said, it's exactly true, is like look for committees, look for building relationships or volunteering with the organizations that mean something to you. And that is just do some research. Wherever you're living, I guarantee you there are many organizations that would align with your passion. And then once you do that, keep going. Look up staff members, look up board members, and you can contact any of them on LinkedIn. So you can send an email. I would just take your time to think about the email, draft it, make it in a way that is concise and is an action item you would like for them to reach out, to connect with them, what you're interested in, the why. People often get back based on the way you'd write an email. So, or just a message, So I think that's a great way. I think you do need to have a connection in these organizations to start getting involved. So if you say, I'd like to volunteer, I would like to see what kind of committees you have. And that's how it happened at College Track. A lot of alums or people who wanted to get involved would contact some staff members or contact people on committees. So I think it's your own research and networking. And even if you think, well, I don't know anybody at this organization, I don't know where to start, do some research. A few organizations, let's say it's climate change, look up a few here that mean something to you. Read about their mission, read about what type of work they do, what are their outcomes, what have they impacted. That would all be on their website, and pick one or two, right? It's like if you're interviewing for a job, you don't want to interview for one. Pick a few organizations and start looking up who's there and contact these people on LinkedIn. So that would be my advice if you're just starting out and you don't know anyone there. But as you start to get further on in your career, you'll be surprised at your own network of asking friends, asking colleagues at work, asking alumni, fellow alums from the schools you've attended. And they'll have great advice or know people that they can introduce you to.
Thank you, Leela. How about you, Kristen?
totally on board with what everybody just shared. I'm just going to add a little bit more. So I work in the field of philanthropy. I work for the Marine Community Foundation, and I'm a senior advisor, as you all know. And I would say that you have to identify your passions and your values first. And so even though we are assuming that everybody in the crowd or in the group that is listening has identified their values and their interests, that's the first step. Because if you don't do that, then the issue is very abstract. And so a lot of us have lived experience, whether it be we had a parent who had cancer, or whether we want to support the BIPOC community, or whether it's you care about women and girls, or whatever the issue might be, and that, or education and the ways in which education has changed our lives. So then after you've identified that issue, then it's getting connected. So I would say, because I think my fellow panel members have covered a lot, is just giving circles are another aspect or a different way that folks can get involved. Giving circles are groups of people that share values and interests, and you can pool your donations together to have a greater impact. So essentially, giving circles were not much of a thing, say 10 years ago, but now I think we have over 4,000 giving circles at least, and probably these are just the ones that are up online. 350,000 donors are giving through those giving circles, and about 3 billion in assets are going out into the world as a result of these giving circles. And there are giving circles for every issue you can possibly imagine. So unlike a crowdfunding, which is usually a one-time issue, giving circles provide a space for connection for people who want to conduct due diligence together, want to figure out how to select the best organizations, how to have a deeper impact. And they usually meet either monthly, quarterly, and it could even be annually. I know some giving circles where the requirement is put $1,000 into the pool, the pool of funds, and everybody does that, and they all come together and they make some decisions. So there's a lot of helpful resources in the Bay Area. In fact, there are probably about 10 organizations doing this good work. So one that I really respect is Philanthropy Together. For any of you that may be aware of that, they have a list of at least 4,000 giving circles that you can become a part of. And there's generally no membership fee. You can just find the issue that you care about and connect to it. There's the Latino Community Foundation. There's the Black Funders Network. There's an organization called Hella Oakland that works with the Asian population. There's another, and the East Bay Community Foundation is actually an amazing resource. They do all sorts of good work. And if you just go onto their website, they list some of the giving circles you can participate in. So I would say that's my contribution.
Thank you so much. I think really the importance of learning about the organization really needs to be driving how you engage with the partner organizations. And I also particularly appreciate all of the sort of different ways and the multiple pathways. So now let's sort of transition more into the tactical pieces. A question for all of you: are there particular financial strategies you use or recommend, or that folks should know about as they consider deepening their support? And Kristen, you touched briefly with the giving circles. Would you mind leading us off here?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I was just trying to put into the chat all the different resources. Can you just, sorry, can you say that one more time?
You do your resources, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you for providing those resources, Kristen.
Yes.
The one piece of advice I have is to try to be strategic and really think about what matters to you and go deep in whatever way is meaningful. If you can afford $100, give it to an organization and continue to give it and have more and more impact. And as you earn more and you grow in your life and your financial sort of net worth, you can give more. And it could be a couple of organizations, but decide what matters to you versus just someone calls and says, okay, you can give to this and you give $50 here, and you sprinkle it all over. I strongly recommend you really think about what it is that matters to you and have a strategy and continue to give in that lane, so to speak. if it's education, do that. If it's the arts, do that. And it can change. You can, for multiple years, you can do that. Or if it's your religious affiliation in that congregation or church, like there's something to be said for feeling like you are deepening your connection to a community. And if it's financially, if it's with your time, there's a saying with boards, if you join a board or committee, people come on for, it's either 3 T's or 3 W's. They mean the same thing. Some people call it work, wealth, and wisdom. And some people call it time, treasure, and talent. Those mean the same thing in the sense that having impact can come from giving your time. It can come from giving your money. People give money, they don't have time, but they give, and that helps the organization, right? And some is your talent, because you have expertise that you can give, and there's a lot of advice and your experience they can learn from. So sometimes time, it's like you're volunteering, you'll do whatever, like what needs to get done. They have someone who can help. So that's your time, right? And then work, wealth, and wisdom is the same thing. So think about, I would say, try to give that in a direction that means something to you, because you'll start to feel better and better, because you'll see your impact grow. It's very hard to see that when it's sprinkled everywhere. It's kind of like your career, right? Like if you keep building your career in the same area and stay at an organization to grow from an entry-level person to a VP, you gain expertise, you gain commitment, you gain impact. People nowadays move all over the place. They're doing, oh, I'll stay a year here. Oh, there's another job over here. I will tell you from almost turning 60, that actually in the long run will not help you. And I say that very seriously, because I have managed and led a very big team, and I don't hire people at all who do that, because it just tells you they will not lean in, have commitment and loyalty to something. And it's really, you're kind of cheating yourself out of what you get by giving that to something you care about. So I'll stop there.
Kristen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. So, what would I recommend for deepening support? And this is on the this is sort of on the financial side. So I'm assuming that the majority of the folks on the call are 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. So depending on where you are in your career, there could be people who are just launching their careers and may not have enough discretionary money to actually give to a cause in a deep, deep way. But I'll just echo what Leela said around the time, talent, and treasure, and how important it is to really consider those 3 buckets, and to remember that time and talent are just important as the treasure piece. But I'm going to talk about the treasure piece for a moment. So where I work at the Marin Community Foundation and all the other 800 community foundations throughout the US, they all manage these things called donor advised funds. And a donor advised fund is sort of what we call a charitable checking account. And through these charitable checking accounts, donors can become much more strategic around the way that they give their money. And they're assigned a philanthropic advisor like me that helps them to identify the organizations and the issues they care about, and to allocate the money in a way that makes not only them feel a sense of joy, but also that there's impact and a way in which we're supporting the organization to become stronger and to build capacity. So when someone opens a donor advised fund, they get an immediate tax deduction. They can deduct up to 60% of their adjusted gross income, and 30% for appreciated assets such as stock. So when you start building your assets, this is a really good way to not have to give the money away right away, but to put it into a place where it can continue to grow and decide on a strategy of how to give the money away. I would also just say, for folks who are just starting out in philanthropy, this may not be the best way to go. I personally do not have a donor advised fund. I tend to find giving circles to be much more valuable for me, because I'm connecting with peers, I'm learning how to give in strategic ways, and I feel like there's much more of a sense of connection. I will just put in a little boost for community foundations, because they are on the ground and they know the issues, and every single community foundation, no matter which city you live in, I guarantee there's a community foundation in your region. So, and you can use them as a resource to help learn about an issue for free. oftentimes there's offerings where you can learn about a specific issue. And there's an East Bay Community Foundation, a San Francisco Foundation, Silicon Valley, Marin, Sonoma, Napa, you name it. So, and then the other thing I would say is do yourself a favor and start working with a financial planner when you start to have some discretionary funds, because it's helpful to talk to someone who can help you determine how much you should be saving, how much you should be investing, and how much you actually have to give. And just, it's good to have a thought partner in that process when you start thinking about larger dollars.
Thank you, Kristen. How about you, Enrique?
I think Kristen gave a nice, thorough overview of multiple avenues, and the only other one that I would add is considering corporate matches and exploring whether your employer is able to match a donation that you're able to do to a specific organization. So kind of piggybacking on what has been already mentioned around intentionality and strategy is, you're able to pick that organization that you want to give to, however much you're able to, and then leverage that benefit that your company may be offering to double that investment. And so bring more funds into that particular area that you're passionate about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all those powerful insights. So exciting to see how you've each addressed different sort of facets of deeper engagement, from board service, advocacy, to some tactical financial strategies that really maximize impact. So what stands out for me, I think the through line here is really hearing about sort of that fundamental shift from transactional giving to really that transformative partnership. Calling out again what Leela had said about bringing our full selves, or time, treasure, talent, or work, wealth, or wisdom, and really having a strategy and growing from there. So we've already gotten some pretty good actionable ideas from all of our panelists. Let's zoom out to another crucial question that I think many donors face, and some folks on the call may also be facing. Maybe there's some folks that have already identified a cause that they're passionate about, so either education, climate, racial justice, etc., but they aren't quite sure which specific organizations to support. So a question for all of you: what advice can you share about how to find the best fit with an organization that's doing work that matters to you? What criteria matters to you personally? And then how are you evaluating these potential partners? Leela, would you like to start us off?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question, because it takes you one level down from an umbrella sort of category. So for, say, education, there are many, many organizations and sort of levels of organization, types of schools. You can do university, high school, elementary level, and volunteer at one of those. You can work with a college track or Making Waves. And it's about students and communities, specific communities, and serving those communities and making sure young people can get to and through college. So in other words, when you pick the overarching sort of issue that really interests you, go one level down and think about what within that umbrella interests you, the type of work and the area they serve. What is their impact? Is that what interests you? Because you'll be very excited to join this community, to be a part of it, to figure out the way you are involved. And there's many things you can do. It's not about money. There are many, many years I had none, and I made a huge difference in a lot of places. So don't think money first. Think you are smart, you are an expert, you know things in the world, you have a lot of life experience. Join, and you'll be shocked at how much you make a difference. But it does matter how it ends up, I would say, playing out for you and for the organization is the way you think about the why. So your why is the biggest area of interest, but there's many things within that you can do. So think that through a little bit before you start reaching out, like we talked about earlier in this webinar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kristen or Enrique, feel free to hop in on this one.
Enrique, you want me to go first?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so just a couple other things. So I'm just going to speak from personal experience for a moment. So I lived at Green Gulch Zen Center, which is a meditation center and out in Muir Woods area for several months. And because I was so moved by that experience, I ended up doing a volunteer program for coming of age for 11 and 12-year-old girls. So I think a lot of times it's not only the lived experience or the personal experience that you gain from something, but also wanting to give that back to to the next generation or to and so that would be the volunteer piece. But and as far as like identifying the best organizations, I think oftentimes it's because you have a connection, because you have a friend, because you have something that happened to you that makes you feel moved to give in that space, and or where you want to just really move the dial because you're seeing a world issue that concerns you and you want to make a change. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be something you're familiar with, but it needs to be something, again, that you're passionate about. And some things I like to think about are some boards I've sat on have been grassroots, and you don't realize how much work is going to need to go into being a member of that board. So I think so really feeling passionate about the leader and feeling inspired by a leader, I think is number one when I think about where would I want to spend time. Are there ways in which you can connect to the organization through going to an event or helping them fundraise behind the scenes or somebody who's helping them with their marketing? Or a lot of times nonprofits don't have the capacity to do everything that they need to do to get the word out. And so they need people to help promote the amazing work that's happening. So I would say, is there anything else? And then be clear on how much time you want to commit to an organization. I think before you go, again, if you're going to be engaging with a grassroots group, you might be spending a lot more time with the organization and helping build capacity than you would if somebody is much more established. And or is it that you just want to be involved a few times a year? Or is it that just you want to give $1,000 each year and then get and that's that. So kind of thinking about how deeply you want to be connected.
Enrique, how about you?
I think I would reiterate what has been mentioned earlier, which is spending that time to do the research and identifying the organization. I think I would just reemphasize that, exploring their website to learn about the values that they have, what's their programming or approach that they're taking to try to have the impact or reach that you're hoping to support, and does that align with the values and the passion points that you have? I again would echo the assisting and attending events, whether that's in person or virtual. It could be a good way to kind of supplement that research by attending webinars like these or others that folks might be having. A philanthropic partner might be putting on a fundraising event, so you might be able to volunteer at a table, like tabling or something else, in addition to what Kristen was saying about supporting a nonprofit who might need those extra hands on deck for avenues that you can take. And I think what particularly stands out is just finding that alignment. How is this organization showing up for and expressing commitment for people and for communities that maybe you identify with or that you've lived with or that you want to support? And what sectors or areas do they focus on? I know that for me, having been in the Making Waves program myself, I didn't know it at the time, but Making Waves, before it was the foundation that it is now, was a nonprofit and received support, philanthropic support, to fund itself before it, right, evolved and became the institution that it is now. And so it's because of that support that students like me can go to college or that other students can pursue arts. So finding those passion points, whether it's through your own lived experience or the lived experiences of others in your network, is, I think, the right way to identify the values that you want to support.
Ooh, I'm already finding some inspirational ways across all our panelists' responses. So thank you for your thoughtful perspectives. I think collectively, I think what we're highlighting is the real importance of taking the time to find what you are passionate about, deeply understand your why, your capacity, and then find those organizations that you're drawn to and seek opportunities to actually connect with them. I can share really briefly from the Atlassian Foundation side. we usually start with having a conversation internally to understand what we have and what we want to bring to the table and what are our values as an organization. And then we start to engage with potential partners to ensure there's alignment, recognizing that we might not be a fit for everyone, and that's okay. We really see true partnership as being collaborators and partners, and not just funders for Atlassian. So now we have our Q&A portion, which we have some questions from the audience. And I will start off with maybe Leela. We have a question around what are the requirements for being on a board? What are sort of the typical expectations of the board members, and overall any advice around becoming a board member?
Absolutely. So let's start with sort of requirements, so to speak, and what it entails from sort of a time perspective, and what you can give in terms of your expertise to a board. Usually boards have bylaws that sort of follow kind of a criteria of like how they work, what they're looking for people to do by joining. They have committees within a board. So there might be one that works on finance. There's a finance committee, or there's a fundraising committee, or there might be a marketing committee, or on Making Waves Education Foundation, there's a program committee. So we look for alumni to be on that to really advise us on program. So once you come on the board, there'll be options to join a committee. Boards tend to meet once a quarter. So a fiscal year is usually either, that's how organizations and companies track their finances and their calendars. Some start July 1 to June 30. Some are calendar fiscal years, January 1 to December 31st. So they have quarterly meetings. So in a fiscal year, there's Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Some have streamlined it, and lately they're now doing 3 meetings a year. So every 4 months. And what usually happens in the board are there updates from the committees, and there'll usually be an agenda set by the CEO and the chair of the board. So there's usually a chair, sometimes a co-chair, and then there's heads of different committees, and then an executive committee within the board. They would ask you to join that. That's a smaller subset that is usually makes the biggest decisions. They take input from the full board. So that's sort of the structure and how they work and your time commitment. I think what's important is once you know an organization well, so the first, up until now in this call, sort of we've talked about how to connect to organizations you're interested in, how to network within them, how to do work. People will reach out to you to see you as a valuable board member and want your expertise to join. Sometimes there are people who are big philanthropists in a field. They're often asked to join the board because they've been involved and it's knowledge, or you can find most of this on the internet. You've been involved in it. And I'll give you an example that Regina Scully, the wife of John Scully, who founded Making Waves and Making Waves Academy and the foundation. I happen to know her through my work at College Track. And we worked together just in that professional perspective. And she reached out to me just last April and knew about where the board was, where the organization is, and thought I could really use Leela's expertise, just because I built a career in marketing, communications, in fundraising, in sales on the private sector side and the nonprofit side. And so she reached out and said, I'd love for you to consider that. So you have conversations with different board members, but if you're interested, you can approach a board, right? So talk to someone on the board, reach out to them on LinkedIn. So I hope that's helpful from a bigger perspective. Happy to answer anything else if I didn't quite answer the full scope of the question.
Yeah, it looks like we have quite a few follow-up questions from that question in your response, Leela. One of them is it possible to join an organization's board without prior involvement in the organization? And then also on top of that, beyond investing time, is there usually a particular fiscal ask of a board member as well?
I feel like I've been talking a lot.
I can just pipe in for a moment. Yeah, I'll just say I do want to elevate the importance of lived experience as well, because we have we work with a lot of nonprofits with boards. And of course, having donors on the board are important to help with financial responsibilities, but it is not necessarily a requirement. And many organizations do not require any kind of contribution. So, or it could be a contribution as little as $50 just to show that there's skin in the game, but it doesn't have to be, say, 100,000 or even 10,000. I would say, oh, there was another piece to this. I think it's so important to have a variety of representation on a board. So if it were Making Waves, maybe you would want somebody who had graduated from the Making Waves program. Maybe you would want somebody who was a previous donor. Maybe you would want somebody who has marketing and communications experience. Maybe you would want another person who has fundraising experience. So I think everyone plays a very pivotal role. And just because you don't have previous experience doesn't mean that you're not a valuable player. That's all I have to add there.
That reminds me of the T's that we were referencing earlier, right? Or the W's, the wisdom piece, right? And like what you're able to bring. I would definitely echo that. I think I would just add that in my experience serving on the Making Waves Academy school board, some of the requirements and kind of expectations are for you to read through a docket of information for that meeting that you're going to be attending with updates on what's been going on. The expectation that you'll be able to engage in questions that are really designed to push the leadership of the organization or the institution to think about what work are we doing and how, in what ways is it or is it not aligning with our goals and our vision. So keeping kind of that government structure and making sure that the institution is moving forward and meeting its goals is kind of what you're able to bring. And very much so, whether that's from the marketing perspective that you have or the background that you have, there's certain gaps. You don't have to be an expert in everything to be on the board. You might, for example, I was newer to kind of like the finances piece of what the board is, but I have more background in education. And so a board is intended to be a diverse representation of that expertise. So someone else will be able to bring that and you'll be able to learn from that too in your own experience. So it's definitely not like you have to know everything or know everyone. So it is definitely possible to join the board of an organization that you don't have prior involvement with. But I think that's where the connections that we were speaking to earlier are very important, where you're trying to be intentional with that outreach, whether it's with the CEO or whether it's with a program staff that you're learning. You try to make that kind of entryway, and then it could hopefully open those doors to that position on the board that you're looking for.
Amazing. We have time for one more question from the audience, and I'm going to try and paraphrase a couple of these into one big question. It's a few folks on the call have identified an organization whose mission and cause they feel passionate about and have tried reaching out to volunteer in some capacity, either through online or sort of cold emails. But they've never heard back. So a question for the panel is around, maybe we actually concretize this or make like a little bit more actionable and tactical. What is the next best step to, get involved with a nonprofit that you don't have a connection with already? How do you reach them? And anyone can start this one.
I would say don't let that discourage you. Don't give up. Yes, try LinkedIn. Yes, try an email. I would probably elevate, look for a local event that they might be having, whether that's in person or virtually, and just attend, be a participant. And maybe you're not a volunteer, but you're engaged. So you're going to see what kind of event they're putting on, and you're able to kind of hopefully have a person or two in mind that you would want to target and network with at that particular event. That's what immediately comes to mind for me.
Yeah. And I would say leverage your networks, which we're now a part of your network, by the way.
Right.
So if you have an organization that hasn't gotten back to you, chances are someone has a connection somewhere. And I would be happy to make any connections. I don't know what the organization is or who isn't getting back to you, but sometimes they're just busy. They're low staffed. They're looking for more help, but they just don't have the bandwidth to respond as quickly as we would like them to. So again, I would just reiterate, don't give up.
Yeah. And I will add, being super specific. I rarely have heard of someone making a connection, get involved in something by first step is good. Use the portal. If this is for your career and for volunteer work in any way or a board. You can do the portal. You can, someone's collecting resumes through this portal. Rarely will you actually get anything back because there's a lot of people going that way and people aren't monitoring it. It's not personal enough. Try to find a human being where you actually connect humanly with their voice or their eyeballs, or you actually talk to a human. Well, people don't do it anymore and they go, oh, well, I sent my resume into the online portal. I haven't heard. Well, I wouldn't expect to. I don't know anyone who's gotten an interview off of that. It's a nice first step. Then you do the next step. You find a human. Hey, I sent in my resume, following up, would love to. It's in your portal because that's their direction, right? Please use this. Do that. And then know that there's like 3 more steps for you to be the one who's persistent enough for them to say, sure, be happy to. It's how graceful are you at doing the drumbeat of, hey, would like to talk to you, would love to meet with you. It's how you do it. But never give up, be persistent, be graceful, and continue to do it. Those will be like, wow, that person is really interested and they're persistent and they seem very collaborative. I'm going to call them back, or I'd love to talk to them. But the first step of, oh, well, I tried, nothing happened. They want to see if you work for them, if you volunteer for them. How do you work? You're someone who gets stuff done, right? You move things forward. So just be persistent, but it's how you do it that will get you where you want to go.
Amazing. Great. So I think before we close out this session, I'd love to ask one final question for each of you. And we'll try to do this somewhat quick, as I know that we're kind of cutting to time. So for the younger folks, or maybe folks that are just starting out their journey, looking to deepen their impact, what is that one piece of advice that we didn't discuss today? Kristen, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I would just say, don't forget to pay it forward. And, all of us have had mentors in our lives or have had somebody who has impacted us in a positive way. And you could be that person to somebody else. So don't ever forget the value in that whole process.
I really like that because it reminds me of the Making Waves affirmation, which is recycling my success, which is my favorite line. You want to recycle your success and pay that back to where you came from. I think I would reiterate that you're just starting off, and like what Leela was saying, like that's the first step, and you don't give up there. You might not be able to join a board immediately as your first step, especially if you're trying to gain that experience. I would again recall like my own. I started with an alumni kind of advisory council, and that's how you're showing that you're investing this time, and you're showing your actions and your commitment, which then can open the doors as people are noticing what you're doing. So it's okay to start off small and know that it's kind of, going to build up to that board position that you're hoping to eventually land.
Yeah, I love that point. And I think it's about having confidence and being realistic about where you are. So if you're like 2 years out of college and you have some interests, I think you want to gain more life experience and have more skills that you've gained in the workforce and learn a lot more in the world before you say, I want to be on your board, right? There are alumni who are joining, like we're about to nominate, it's going to be voted on next week, a wave maker who has become a lawyer, who works in the field, who's gained real work experience, and is now going to join the board as of next week and is going to contribute to our program committee. But it wasn't just immediately out of school, because you want, as we said, you're bringing, your talent, your experience, and that's what can you contribute. So, I'm an old bird, so I wasn't asked to be on boards when I was, 25 or 30. To be really honest, like I gained experience in my career. I've done 3 things for 10 years, 3 different careers, 10 years each. So I feel confident and humble, but I know that I have things to add value when I'm to a board or to a committee, or when I volunteer anywhere, or even at my job. Once you gain skills and you work somewhere for a long time, you actually have something valuable to give. You also do, if you're young and you have a lived experience, but be realistic about what is that. right? But go forth, get out in the world, do things, work with humans, get off your phone, get off your screen, and do something in the world.
Amazing. What an incredible conversation. My deepest thanks to Enrique, Leela, Kristen for sharing your expertise and wisdom today. From my seat, I've seen firsthand that impact multiplies when we contribute our full selves. So not just funding, but our expertise, networks, influence, and our authentic presence. And the most powerful philanthropy happens when we listen deeply to the communities, build those genuine partnerships, and commit to our long-term work of change. So your next step doesn't need to be grand. It could be filling out that online portal. It could be joining a board. It could be offering your skills, participating in a giving circle, or simply just having a conversation with an organization that you love. A special thank you to Making Waves for creating the space, and a plug that they will be hosting more panels this year. So keep an eye out in your inbox for the newsletter where you can learn more about opportunities like this. And lastly, we have a very short feedback survey in the chat. So please just go share your thoughts about this virtual panel and what you'd like to hear back or hear more from us in the future. Good luck putting your passion into action, and we hope to see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.